Hi, this is Paul Palmer, and
Natasha, it's Dorothy Cowan. Great to be with you, Paul. Looks like our theme is productivity.
it is, yes. And
Have
unlike,
you have you been productive lately?
no, that's the problem. But you see, I keep switching between the different approaches.
hmm
And when you switch, you lose productivity for a period while you implement a new system. And then you enhance your productivity as you embed it.
Yeah.
And then somebody else says to you, oh, well, have you tried this one instead? And rather than sticking to what you've already established, you jump onto another and you jump onto another and you jump onto another. And in doing so, you actually results in worse productivity than you had in the first place.
And so using the shortcuts and the tools that worked well with somebody else, once you've got your systems in place, might derail your system, is what
Exactly.
you mean.
Exactly. So for example, I've got two CRMs, and I was trying to use one CRM for one type of activity and a different CRM for another type of activity.
Right.
But they don't work together. So you end up with some contacts in one place and other contacts in another place. And you have to manually transfer from one to the other because there's no way of integrating them. And it works the same when you're doing in pharmaceutical manufacturing. If you buy a tool, say you've got SAP and you haven't coded it to you haven't set up the API so that it interfaces automatically with your electronic quality management system, because you had that established before you installed SAP. So you didn't buy the SAP quality module. And then on top of that, you find that you've also got an MRP system that the planning group like to use. So you've now got your SAP system, you've got your planning system, and you've got your documentation system. And by
What
not
could possibly go wrong?
by not having them integrated, what
Yeah.
you find is that you have to transfer the product information from the stock management system, the SAP system, to the planning system. Okay, you do it once, that's fine. But if you've got new products coming along and you've got adjustments to the products and you've got changes in items that come in and maybe a supplier changes, you end up having to change two systems instead of one. And the SAP system is really efficient if you customize it so that everything's automated.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, then you end up with loads of additional keystrokes. And you can end up with needing extra people to manage the integration of the three systems just because you haven't put them together in the first place. So what I like to do is I like to work with a single company that covers everything, even if it's slightly less efficient in certain areas, because the amount of productivity you lose by transferring from one to another, and the number of transcription errors from having a manual transfer, and the number of delays from lack of compatibility because something didn't go right. So, for example, the data didn't load whichever direction because you had the format wrong, or because there was an error when you exported your CSV file, but you didn't notice because you didn't have your cross-check validation going ahead. So when you loaded it back up, there was 3 errors that kicked out 3 product codes, but you didn't know that until you got the verification afterwards. And by that time, somebody had already tried to plan that product. So then you have to back it out of your MRP system to be able to remove it from your SAP system and then put it correct back into your EQMS.
Okay, so all of this sounds like a great cartoon that is one of those hard-hitting, painful things that you sort of laugh about and groan about simultaneously.
The problem is it happens all the time
Yeah.
because the cost of changing everything and the amount of time and the validation that goes into it is significant.
Yeah.
So people bring in one system And then they do set up an interface that goes between that system and whatever else you're going to use. Well, if that's whatever in between system is custom coded all the time, each time you change that custom coding to accommodate a different input, well, you've got the risk of messing up all the other ones you've already done.
It's got a cascade effect. So no wonder people are not as productive as they can be. They're struggling to get productive. They're never in the place to be productive. They're getting ready to get ready.
All the time, constantly, yes.
Yeah.
And
that's so disruptive.
It's the same with personal productivity.
Yeah.
I used to work with the guy that did project planning. And he managed the project planning tool. That was it. That's all he did. His whole job was updating the resources.
Yeah.
And managing Microsoft Project. That was it. All the time. And everybody had to feed in the information to him. Whereas everybody should have been able to use this integrated system. They'd actually added resource to be able to get the productivity working.
And then he ended up being a bottleneck, and then everybody else is like, how come it's not ready? How come we can't do this? Won't you hurry up? Why is it taking so long?
And all we ended up with was visibility of everything being delayed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so much of today's productivity is invisible.
Yeah.
Right? You can't see it until the result happens. Or you can't see it until you need to get something done, and you've got all of these obstacles around it.
Or you're just simply too late. You missed the deadline. And when I was doing my MBA, because I didn't know what was supposed to be due when, for my first particular project or deliverable.
Yeah.
And I got a notification that it was overdue rather than knowing when it was due in the first place. I ended up staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning because I knew that they were measuring it on US time, not UK time.
Well, I don't know that that's a great, that's not the solution, right?
No, but I put my own system in then to track it afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your advice to folks who are trying to get more productive through productivity systems that don't work?
Choose a system, set it up, verify it works, stick to it. And don't jump on to the next thing that somebody recommends. If you do want to change and you find that something is better, it's better, not somebody told you it might be, then do it in a controlled manner. Phase out of one and into the other. And test it to make sure it actually works for you, because often you'll find that you want to go back. Because productivity is a strange thing. You don't know what's going to work for you as an individual. You don't know what's going to work for your company, because different companies are structured in different ways. Different people work better with different systems. It's like learning styles. My learning style is participative. Other people's learning style might be just front of the room presentation.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think you've given folks some great advice today, Paul.
Yes. And I think we're going to finish there for today.
All right.
That's Paul Palmer and
Natasha Todorovic Cowan signing out.
We'll talk to you soon.